Genesis chapter 11 tells the story of the Tower of Babel, which is a story about the consequences of human pride and ambition. After the flood, humanity spoke a single language and settled in the land of Shinar. They decided to build a great city with a tower that reached to the heavens. The people believed that this tower would make them famous and prevent them from being scattered across the earth. However, God saw their pride and ambition and decided to confuse their language, so that they could no longer understand each other. This caused them to be scattered across the earth, forming different nations and cultures. One interesting aspect of this chapter is its symbolism. The Tower of Babel represents humanity's pride and ambition, and its destruction represents the consequences of these qualities. The confusion of languages represents the division and fragmentation that occurs when people focus on their individual interests rather than working together. Another interesting detail is the role of God in this story. God sees humanity's pride and ambition, and intervenes to prevent them from becoming too powerful. This raises questions about the relationship between humans and the divine, and challenges us to consider the limits of our own power and ambition. In summary, Genesis chapter 11 tells the story of the Tower of Babel and the consequences of human pride and ambition. This chapter symbolizes the fragmentation that occurs when people focus on individual interests, and highlights the role of the divine in intervening to prevent humanity from becoming too powerful. Genesis chapter 12 marks the beginning of the story of Abram, who later becomes known as Abraham, the father of the Israelite people. The chapter begins with God calling Abram to leave his home and go to a land that God will show him. God promises to make Abram into a great nation, to bless him and make his name great, and to bless all the families of the earth through him. One interesting aspect of this chapter is the theme of faith and obedience. Abram responds to God's call and leaves his home, even though he does not know where he is going. This act of faith is rewarded with God's promises and blessings. Another interesting detail is the relationship between God and Abram. God initiates the relationship and makes promises to Abram, who responds with obedience and faith. This highlights the importance of both God's grace and human response in the relationship between humans and the divine. In addition, this chapter introduces the theme of blessing, which becomes a central theme throughout the rest of the Bible. God promises to bless Abram and make him a blessing to others. And this idea of being a blessing is carried forward by Abram's descendants, and ultimately by Jesus himself. In summary, Genesis chapter 12 tells the story of God calling Abram and promising to make him into a great nation and a blessing to others.